So Mogul Mowgli is a film co-written by and starring Riz Ahmed, who of course is both an actor and a musician, and he plays a British Pakistani rapper on the brink of his first tour to America. He's called Zed, which is an abbreviation of his name, and he is then struck down by this debilitating sickness, and he finds himself facing an uncertain future. And one of the things that the film is about the relationship between the past, the present, and the future. There's a kind of the legacy of partition. There is a thing about there's a tension between his life and his roots and his future. And all of this is interwoven with a strange sort of thread of magical realism in which, I mean, I interviewed Riz Ahmed a while ago, and he described the film as a Sufi horror musical with elements of comedy about family ties and generational divides. And that is pretty much the best way of describing it. So it's a film in which there are all these different elements pulling at, at a sort of central narrative in a way that I think is really exciting and really interesting. It's directed by Bassam Tariq. It's his first feature. And what it manages to do is to tell a number of stories at the same time. So on the one hand, you have a story of a political heritage, and you have a story about partition and about modern British life, and you have this transatlantic element. On the other hand, it tells a musical story, which is absolutely threaded through the narrative, that the evolution of the music of the story is part of the narrative. Then you have this story about families, about your relationship to your family, about realizing, what matters and what doesn't matter. It's about somebody being torn between their loyalties to a possible future and an absolutely concrete family environment. It has a very strong sort of spiritual element to it, but it is primarily about identity. And I think the thing that's really great about the film is it's kind of smart enough to imagine that the audience will keep up with those questions of identity. It kind of imagines that the audience wants to be challenged. So what it does is it doesn't stand around and explain things to you, but it tells its story in a way that even if you're not quite up to speed with the different elements of it, you can absolutely keep up with them. I thought it was really impressive, and it got a real urgency to it. I mean, it is, every now and then you see a film that, reaches out of the screen and grabs you, and that's partly to do with the filmmaking, it's partly to do with the performances, it's partly to do with the way in which all these different elements are put together. Anyway, it's called Mogul Mowgli. Seeing it in home must have been a great experience, and it's very fun. I advise you to seek it out in cinemas.